It's a Southern family name. I was born in Montgomery, Alabama.
Is that right?
And it's a Southern family name, and it's pronounced Talbot, as opposed to here where it's pronounced Talbot. So I'm called both, and I'll answer to both during the week or during the day or any time. We just moved from Gaithersburg area, a small town called Olney, and we moved over in about 2002, and because we liked the place. We'd come through a couple of times, and we spent some days in bed and breakfast and here, and we just liked the whole atmosphere of the town. So when things were right, we sold our house over there in Olney, and we bought a house here. And for about 10 months, I commuted back and forth until I found a job at Easton Utilities. I worked at Easton Utilities for about 9.5 years, and ended up, when I retired, I was the manager of the water, wastewater, and engineering departments. Before we came to Easton, I was in the Navy and retired from the Navy after 27 years. And I retired as a captain in the Civil Engineer Corps, and so we did all of the engineering, construction, for the Navy throughout the world, and a lot of places for the Air Force and even for the Army. No, I wasn't engaged at all with Montgomery County. We moved around so much I really couldn't get involved. In the Navy, they moved me 18 times in 27 years, and you can do the math and you can see I'm not stuck in any one place. I got involved in a lot of things here when I was with Easton Utilities. Started working with the ACE Mentor Program, where we helped the seniors and juniors and even sophomores at the high schools in Talbot County get scholarships. And so while I was with them, we gave out about $100,000 in scholarships for the 10 years I was with them, which was, I think it'll help out. It's not going to pay for college, but it's a help, I think. Also started reading to second graders and third graders, helping them learn how to read. Some of them would read to me, others I would read to them, but get them to pronounce the words. And then of late I've been doing the junior achievement, teaching financial responsibility to third graders, fourth graders, and my last discussion was with some 11th graders. Then I was talking to them about the fact that they need to make sure that they keep their scores down as far as their credit score. Yeah. They can't, keep it high. They can't let it get low. Right. They've got to keep it high, and how important that is, because that's something that stays with you the whole time. Yeah. Well, it all really transpired over a dinner table at Christmas. I was talking with our one grandson when we were out in Missouri, and he said he'd really like to see a bone on a ballot someplace. And I had been toying with the idea because Pete Lecher had been elected to the Talbot County Council, so there was an empty seat. And I've got to know the town a lot by being on, working at Easton Utilities, but then also being on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so I got to learn a lot about it, and I thought, well, here's an empty seat. I think I'm qualified, and I think I could help the community if I got that seat. And so that's when I decided to, I was thinking strongly about it, but then when my grandson said, boy, it'd be nice to see a bone on a ballot, I said, okay, that was all I needed, and that kicked me over. And so I started from there. I think there are three really important things, I think, that affect us. The first one, I think, is what I call starter housing. We have some 600 to 700 people that work at our schools and the hospitals or our police department, and 30% of them live in Easton. The other 70% don't live in Easton, and I'm convinced that that's because of the price of housing. So an individual that's new to the schools or to the police department or a new nurse is probably going to make on the order of about $42,000 to $43,000 a year. So that means that they could afford to buy a house that maybe cost $220,000, $230,000. And yet when you look at the February housing report, for houses available in that range, there are 9. So there are, when you subtract out some of the people, that 70% equates to 500 people who are looking for houses. And we just don't have houses like that. So one of the things I'd like to do is develop some type of program where we could build these homes, sell them at that price in the downtown area, so that they live here, they work here, they're going to shop here, they're going to visit different facilities here, the Avalon, the different restaurants. So I think that adds a vibrancy to the downtown, and I think that's going to be one of the important things to do. Now there's the affordable housing program that a lot of people are aware of, and the town's got a great one. Mm-hmm. Catch-22 is the new teachers and professional staff and police and the nurses all make more than the maximum you can earn on the affordable housing. So we've got 2 groups of people, and affordable housing is going to help one group. I'd like to help the next group and help them going. Mm-hmm. Well, the average house for sale in Easton is about $400,000. So yeah. It's out of the reach of most of them. And I think there's enough empty space in town, or that we could infill that, or areas that have already been annexed. And that leads me to the next area, and that's Easton Point, which has an awful lot of property. And as we were working with developing the zoning ordinance for Easton Point, we kept in mind that we wanted to put a lot of residential out there, some business, but not a lot. Have some mixed use where you could have a business on the first floor and then apartments or condos on the next couple of floors. And we hope that the developers and property owners see it the way we see it, is that would be an ideal way to develop Easton Point, and then without detracting from downtown, because I want Easton Point to develop as a complement to downtown. In my mind's eye, I see Easton Point as a place where there's open areas for recreation, for people to go down the boardwalk to see there, some transient boat slips where people from other towns and other locations can sail in, a restaurant down there, a place where you can rent kayaks or bikes, or even these electric scooters that you see all over Europe if you're looking at a television show. Mm-hmm. And connected downtown with a shuttle bus of some kind. Even the small 10-passenger electric golf carts would do the trick to move people back and forth. Yeah. So that's the second one, I guess, would be Easton Point, and then the housing, the starter homes developing allows for the revitalization of the downtown Easton. So those are 2 things that I'm interested in. Our plans are not to gentrify Port Street, but to make it a little bit, to upgrade it, if you will. I think there's a lot of landscaping that could be done that could make that a lot nicer. There are some empty spaces and properties there that would be very conducive to townhomes and small businesses or a mixed use, and so that's kind of what I would see on down Port Street. We also need to get the State Highway involved in changing the intersection where we have Port Street and the Parkway, to put in like a roundabout, which would do a couple of things. It would slow down traffic a little bit, but it would also make it a little bit more controlled than just a stoplight out there that I think is probably maybe slowing things down more than it really should. Mm-hmm. Well, it is important, and I think I see it when I was teaching the kids to read in 3rd and 4th grade. There were a large percentage were Hispanics, and I think the cultural the Chesapeake Multicultural Center is a big step in that. All of the people that are coming to Easton from different countries need a leg up in the fact that they need to know English, because English is, if they don't understand English, they're at an economic disadvantage right off the bat. So I think that the schools are teaching it, I believe, and I think the Chesapeake Multicultural Center is also teaching it to people that need it. I know they're doing a lot of good things to help. You're right. Not many people realize that the number of immigrants that we have in the town and some of the good things that they're doing. There is one thing that I do want to bring up and talk about, and that is false alarms.
Yeah,
Several years ago, when I was still working at Easton Utilities, the head of the fire department, or the fire chief, worked there, and every once in a while we would talk. And one of the issues that he was always bringing up as an irritant was the number of false alarms. So when I decided to run, I started pursuing this a little bit more to see where we are, and I contacted Clay Stamp and at what I call the 911 center, and they had just finished up a report, and I believe the number was like 310 false alarms were responded to by the fire department in 2018, in just 1 year. And that may not seem like a lot, but if you think about it, the alarms are going off at odd times during the day and night, and the volunteers that are terrific and do a great job at what they do, go into the fire substation, put on 30 to 40 to 50 pounds of equipment, get on the trucks, go out to where the alarm is sounded, and there's nothing there. And so think about that and do that about 310 times yourself, and you see the level of frustration that's got to be hitting them. The other aspect is they're at risk when they leave their home and they're driving to the fire station, and when the truck engine is driving to the fire, they're at risk. And yes, they're probably covered by insurance, but they're still at risk. A fireman that's hurt doesn't help his family and doesn't help us, so we want to minimize the risk to them. I think the other aspect is that we have a police department that also serves us very well, and in 2018 they had over 1,100 false alarms. And I don't know how much time is taken up in responding to it, but they're being taken away from other things that they could be doing by answering these fire alarms. So the fire alarms is really a county issue because they control all the fire departments through the 911 center. The Easton fire alarms are predominantly, the ones that I'm talking about are Easton, so I think the town has a responsibility to do something there. So we need to put together a plan where we can reduce both the number of false fire alarms and the number of false police alarms. Other counties have done it, other towns have done it, and so I think we ought to be able to do the same thing and save our people for when they're really needed.
So
I think my engineering background is going to be a big help. I think the fact that I know virtually all the players in town as far as those that are involved in the development business and the construction business, very familiar with the town engineer and his staff. I've been involved in a lot of things in Easton, and I think that experience helps me to understand where some things might become more difficult and where some things might become easier. But that's the main area I think that I can contribute. I'm retired, so I spend an awful lot of time researching projects, spending a lot of time reading, and making sure that I have the understanding of the projects that are presented, like for example the planning and zoning. I'll usually go out and visit the site, walk around it, make sure that I understand what's there, the impact on the neighbors. So I'm rather thorough when I am looking at a project like that, and so I think that also helps me.